indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do the roll call. Kristen Shorey.
Here.
David Keiser.
Here.
Christopher McLaughlin. Here. Stephanie Euler.
Here.
Debbie Koalas. Not here. Shannon Knowles. Not in attendance. Grace Kelly. Not in attendance. Eva Benjamin. Not in attendance. Item 2, agenda adjustments.
Yeah, just one. I think we should make an adjustment for Grace's recognition and push that to June. She will have graduated at that point, but at least she would have the opportunity to come and get her certificate.
Motion for the agenda adjustment. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Item 3, approval of minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented from April 3rd.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Item 4, proclamations and presentations. A, donation.
Yes, we'd like to recognize and thank Nancy Carr. And for those of you that don't know Ralph, Ralph is a longtime guidance counselor here at Hermon High School. The guidance suite is named after Mr. Carr, and he passed earlier this year. And so they have contributed a $4,000 scholarship, the Ralph and Nancy Carr Scholarship, to give to a Hermon High School student. So we just want to obviously thank them both, and in particular Nancy, our condolences go out to her during this time.
Thank you. We'll skip B, that was the presentation of certificate of appreciation, and we'll go to C, recognition of HMS students.
Yes, and if I could have 2 students here. Mr. Freeman, you're here, right? Do you mind coming down? And while he's coming down, I'm just going to briefly speak to, we have 2 middle school students that did a pretty neat, and that's probably an understatement, did a neat thing. They exercised, they were in social studies, and they exercised their civic duty and their muscle, and they wrote to Senator Collins. And they were talking to her and asking her some questions, and that prompted a series of, it sounds like, communications that resulted in a visit from Senator Collins. I believe it was 2 weeks ago now, right? Zach, where do you go? Zach. So Zach, do you want to speak a little bit more? And then I would like to recognize these 2 students with the certificate, because that's, to have a standing senator in your school, that's a pretty amazing thing. So, Mr. Freeman?
So,
Yeah, thank you.
So back on, test 1, 2. So back on April 5th, Senator Collins came to Hermon Middle School. She came at the request of J.L. Pelletier and Lavin Moses. She came, this is the first school visit she has done since COVID-19 pandemic. She's been in hundreds of schools, but she chose Hermon Middle School to be the first school that she came, precisely because of the letter that Lavin and J.L. wrote to her. At the encouragement of Mrs. Wedge, who is their 8th grade American Studies teacher. It connects directly back into the curriculum, which is learning about the government system that we have. She presented to the entire 8th grade class about what her role is in Washington, D.C. Additionally, she walked around school and was able to see all the 7th grade. Unfortunately, she's got a chief of staff here in Bangor that was very clear that we've got a time limit, which I understand. And I think that all of our students learned something that day, which is greatly appreciated. So again, thank you to JL and Lavin.
So we'll go in alphabetical order. If we could have Lavin Moses come up and take the certificate, come around and shake hands, and we'd like to read that into the record. So Lavin Moses. J.L. Pelletier.
Okay, that takes us to committee acknowledgements.
I just want to acknowledge all of our teachers in the Hermon School District because I know it's Teacher Appreciation Week and I'm so thankful for each and every one of you guys. I wanted to recognize the Key Club because they stuffed Easter eggs for the pre-K so that they could have their Easter egg hunt. I want to say how excited I am to see that the SRO has started because I think that's a huge addition to our Hermon campuses. And congratulations to all the seniors that committed to their colleges that they're going to be going to. It's pretty scary to think the class of 23 will have graduated by our next meeting.
I'll just congratulate Kyle Martin for his principal award. It's quite an accomplishment, and just congratulations to him. And again, thank you to all the teachers and staff for teacher appreciation. We do appreciate everything that they do and how hard they work, long hours. So thank you.
Tonight, as many of you know, I've been a school committee, on the school committee since July of 2020. And I typically take this opportunity during this part of our agenda to recognize the accomplishments of our students, teachers, support staff, and our administration. That's why we are here, after all, right? But tonight I'd like to acknowledge the school committee meeting on April 3rd in room 155. That was the worst meeting I've ever been and attended in my life. The level of anger, animosity, and hate displayed that night by community members toward our superintendent and the Hermon School Department was remarkable. As a parent and educator, I would never tolerate that kind of behavior from my own children or my students. Never. There would be consequences. There were I was in awe actually that night, speechless. It took me 3 days to recover. As a committee member, and a community member, honestly, this type of behavior is unacceptable here in our meetings, and it should also be unacceptable at the town council meetings, where it has seemed to continue last Thursday. I challenge all of you that are here tonight, and I'm glad that there's a large group, to be better humans, to reflect on your purpose here and truly learn how to work together as a community to be the catalyst for change, and most of all, be positive role models for our children.
Okay, I have one as well. There were questions at the last meeting from the public about Mr. Grant's use of our attorney, Hermon Woodson, that I want to address here tonight. Let me just pass this out to the committee members. It's an email from our attorney, Hermon Woodson. I'll read it here. Dear Mr. Keith, I'm writing to confirm that the superintendent has not requested any legal advice from Hermon Woodson relating to his own personal affairs, including but not limited to his personal choice of where to send his own children to school. Hermon Woodson represents the school committee, not the superintendent individually. Accordingly, all legal charges to the Hermon School Department relate only to Hermon School Department matters.
Mr. Keith, may I add something?
Yes.
So at the town council meeting, one of the questions that was brought up by the council, and rightly so, was a denied claim from MMA regarding a potential litigation suit. And so at that time, I reached out to our attorney firm just to verify that we had done things the correct way, and they gave me a statement to read, just because I feel like it's important now that that's obviously been brought to light. I just want to make sure that there's no, I've seen a lot of misinformation regarding this issue, and at the time, I didn't want to speak to it during the budget meeting. I understand why it was brought up, so I don't have an issue with that, but I want to just correct any misinformation. So in late March, we, the school department, received a letter from a lawyer in California alleging that the Hermon School Department had discriminated against her client, the Pines Church, by refusing to lease the school property to it for either a 6-month or a 1-year period. The lawyer was apparently unaware of some of the critical facts, including that we do not normally rent space out in school for lengthy periods of time because we need to ensure that our school is available for student use when needed, but that we offered to rent the space, and the school committee voted to the Pines Church on a month-to-month basis as we would any other organization. Our council informed the church's lawyer of these facts and reiterated our willingness to give it a month-to-month lease on March 27, 2023. We have yet to receive a response and assume that the church is looking for space that is available on different terms than we were able to give. And the reason it gets sent to obviously to the insurance companies, one is MMA, which is our property and casualty insurance, because it did involve space. We knew that it would probably be, we would not have any reason to, they would not support a claim, obviously. And so, but we also have another insurance company called Internationality, and they are our professional liability insurance. And so they've been made aware. So it's a matter of protocol to inform both insurance companies of any pending litigation or threat of litigation. And like our attorney said, we have not heard back since we responded to their letter regarding discrimination. So I just wanted the committee to be aware of that and to know that we do not have a pending litigation against us, and we have informed our insurance companies as a matter of protocol.
Any other acknowledgements? That takes us to public comments. Thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. We're about to convene into the public comment period of our meeting. While state law in Maine requires public comment item on agendas of a full meeting of our school committee, we also believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues, and so we're pleased to have this as an agenda item. Having said that, please note that the committee is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion, and accordingly, please do not expect the committee to respond to your concerns and questions tonight. We take your concerns and questions seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be. We will, however, respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. At the outset, we ask the speakers to identify themselves with name and town of residence. I also want to point out that per our policy, we are unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel or specific roles. Please know, however, that we take personnel concerns very seriously. On these matters, we would ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. And let me be clear on this. This means all matters relating to school personnel, regardless of whether those statements are complimentary or critical of the employee. Persons present at the meeting are requested not to applaud or otherwise express approval or disapproval of any statements made or actions taken during the meeting. The committee will now entertain public comments from community members. Each individual speaker is allotted 3 minutes. The guidelines I just communicated also apply to the public comment during specific agenda items. So first up is Deb Langell.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I want to say thank you to all the Hermon School Department staff and educators and school committee for everything you do. For those of you who are being attacked or threatened, I'm so sorry. It's truly heartbreaking. But please stay strong because you have our support, including me. You all are appreciated and are doing a great job. Don't forget that. Thank you for taking care of our precious students. Please don't forget to take care of yourself because you matter and we care about you. Our town needs to get back to being Hermon residents versus political politics and parties. It used to be where people could agree to disagree, if necessary, while still being friends and being polite, considerate, professional, and kind. I truly believe God wants us to love everyone and treat everyone with respect. So I hope that we can work on our town and work together. And I think God is looking down and is very sad at the behavior of many in our town right now. Let's all remember, united we stand, but divided we fall. I would never ever want another 9/11, but the unity in our country on 9/12 was amazing. I wish we could get back to that, and we're all united working together for the same cause. Thank you.
Thank you. David Kendall.
I'm a gay man. I was a transgender woman for over 20 years until my mental disorder was healed. The hardest part of detransitioning was accepting the fact that I suffered from an abnormal condition of mental confusion. That is the definition of gender dysphoria. I was the suicidal trans kid that's always brought up in these discussions. But I was also a suicidal trans adult because affirmation, acceptance, and transition does not take away mental confusion, depression, or suicidal tendencies. Every person that identifies into the trans-queer gender movement is force-fed information that they are expected to repeat every time there are questions about biology or a mental disorder being encouraged. The underlying issues and comorbidities go untreated while false narratives are pushed that being trans is normal. Anyone that knew me would have said I was happy, content, and secure being my true self. I was miserable, depressed, and suicidal. There are groomers pushing trans-queer gender ideology and for more social workers in schools. There are blinded people in this room that have no clue what the rainbow that they worship stands for. They think it means same-sex attraction. It stands for perversion. There are men in this room that desire more school social workers to have total access to confused, vulnerable children and their private innermost thoughts. I was targeted as a child by groomers. I was victimized, molested, and raped the groomers in these same positions when I was a child. I was desensitized and sexualized by the adults in my life that I was supposed to trust and confide in. Anyone that defends hiding information from parents, encourages mental disorders, or stands up for the LGBTQIA trans-queer gender rainbow cult should not be near children. Social workers are not using evidence-based materials. They do not have integrity. They are using research done by pederasts and groomers that manipulate the system to give them more access to children's personal secrets and issues. Pouring money into mental health would allow these social workers to bring in outside resources and trans rights activists, giving these deviants more access to children. It would also allow them to be middlemen for providing puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones. I took wrong sex hormones for over 20 years. I was sterile and had osteoporosis before age 30. This was me. Stop pushing this cult's agenda of delusion and perversion on these children, because if you continue, you will all be guilty of the mental, emotional, and physical, irreversible damage being done to these victims, especially the social worker, Mr. McLaughlin. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Sear.
Good evening, folks. Mr. Grant, School Board. Richard Sear, Hermon, Maine. And I'll make it really quick tonight. I was told that I need to follow the science. And the science I follow. And the science is called gender dysphoria, where you are not sure which sex you are, and it's a psychiatric phenomenon. The left likes to make it a better sounding word called transgender. They also do it with other words, like MAPS, minor attracted people. And what does that mean? It means that there are people that are attracted to young adults, actually young people, and they're called pederasts, or common parlance is pedophile. Years ago we had a thing going on where there was a big push to stop childhood female mutilation, where it was cultural for India and Arab countries to mutilate and remove the clitoris from young ladies before they got married. We don't hear about that anymore. But now what we hear about is transgender, and everybody's pushing these young people to become the opposite sex. Unfortunately, you're only born XX or XY, and you cannot become a woman if you're a man, or a man if you are a woman. And men cannot get pregnant and have periods. You can say you're a man, but you're still a woman, and you're the ones that get pregnant and have periods. Men cannot have babies. Women have the babies. There's a difference between teaching acceptance and normalizing and even encouraging children to participate in a lifestyle that causes children confusion in their sexual identity, even treating it as a game. Our children cannot make legal decisions until they're 18, and in some cases 21. Why are we pushing children under the age of 18 into making life-altering decisions, causing sterilization and even more mental difficulties? 88% of the people with gender dysphoria outgrow it by the time they turn 20. And I thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Rick Burgess.
Rick Burgess, Krogan Road, Hermon. My message was prepared earlier, but it seems more relevant after listening to some of the messages that I heard from the board minutes ago. I wonder what color glasses some of you were looking through. My message was that by reminding members of this committee that you were elected to serve the citizens of this town. That means to help make decisions to allow our children to get the best education possible within the framework of the financial constraints to maintain a fair and balanced budget. Watching this board over the past 18 months, it is my observation that most of you care little about the input and desires of the citizens by showing a blatant disregard for them, their questions or ideas. I'm not sure why some of you are even on the committee. Do you understand that this country is in the middle of a recession? Families are hard-pressed to meet the regular living expenses, with 68% of Americans currently living paycheck to paycheck. With prices of food, gas, heating, electricity, etc. still on the rise, we cannot keep absorbing huge increases in this budget, which is over $1 million a year the past 4 years. At the current pace, with undesignated funds being exhausted soon, the budget will exceed $20 million annually very quickly. The town mill rate is going to be increased, and the added tax burden to the citizens is not sustainable. The school department received a large allotment of federal funds for COVID-related issues. With these funds, you hired people to fill various positions that were to assist with children who experienced difficulties during the COVID lockdown. That is over. If the federal funds have been used for other things or no longer exist, the intent was not to make them new positions paid for by the citizens after the funds were exhausted. These wannabe positions should be removed from the budget. The budget belt needs to be tightened, not expanded. You need to cut this budget to not have any increase over last year, regardless of pay increases that are due to the new union contracts. My place. I'm not saying that the teachers and the other members of the school society do not deserve their increases, but the money needs to come from elsewhere, not from increasing the budget. The budget that was presented to the town council last week is full of fluff in my interpretation, and I've reviewed it many times. You need to cut it back, or we will demand that the council do it for you. It is time for the voice of the people in Hermon to be heard. Do your jobs that you were elected to do.
Thank you. Kim Nichols?
Mr. Grant, Jesse, Mr. Sorry, members of the committee, thank you. Kim Nichols from Hermon. With May being Mental Health Awareness Month and in the spirit of bringing positivity, hopefully, and a sense of community back to our meetings, I want to take the opportunity to say how lucky we are to have Chris McLaughlin as part of our community and our school committee. Chris has spent more than 20 years as a provider and leader in behavioral health services and youth and families, from foster care to public schools, private practice, and community-based programs. Chris holds certificates in inclusion and diversity and building a diverse workforce from Cornell University. At a community level, Chris has provided valuable support to staff during the pandemic as they navigated their way through trying to meet students' needs while also providing for their own families the support that they needed at home. Thank you, Chris, for your commitment, leadership, coaching, and mentoring, but mostly thank you for your commitment to all people. We can't thank you enough for being part of our community. And I also wanted to say, as I drove up the driveway and I saw the yellow tulips coming up in the front, that gave me hope. I'm hoping that this community can come back together and be more positive. Thank you, Chris. And thank you to the rest of the committee members, Mr. Grant, Jesse, and also happy Staff and Teacher Appreciation Week to everybody in all 3 schools. We're very grateful for all of you.
Thank you. Jim Thorne?
Thank you and good evening. My name is Jim Thorne. I represent District 35 in the Maine House of Representatives. I live in Carmel, and my district makes up the towns of Carmel and Hermon. I serve on the Joint Standing Committee of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. I bring to you today a list of LDs, which are legislative documents, that are being considered to go into law. These ones are being heard in education. I thought it would be pertinent to the committee and to those in attendance and listening tonight. The bill proposals are being heard with public testimony by the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. Public hearings will be held all this week on the following. LD 992, and I have a list of all the bills up on the table. Feel free to grab one as you're out the door. LD 1415, LD 1420, 1472, 1520, 1527, which is an act to promote the community school program, LD 1528, LD 1565, and LD 1008, which is an act to establish a rating system for books in school libraries. And a summary of this is this bill establishes a certain content rating system for books or written materials in school libraries. The bill requires that publishers that distribute books, written materials to a school administrative unit or public charter school for placement in the libraries assign each rating to the book or material. The Department of Education may disagree with the content rating assigned by the publisher and recommend determined by the department to be appropriate. In such case, the department must provide written notice to the publisher about the rating, and the publisher must either change the rating according to the department's recommendation or cease all sales and distribution of the affected books or materials, or issue a recall of all copies sold or distributed to school administrative units, public charter schools. And any faculty, committee members, or residents would like to attend these hearings, please contact me and I'll be happy to provide additional information. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Greg Newell.
Greg Newell, Hermon. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to be going very quickly, sorry. I saw a draft network engineer job description in the school committee packet. Since this was not brought up in the technology subcommittee where I made these comments, I'll bring them up here. I think the job should have some sort of certification requirements, just like the school teacher positions require certifications. It shows that you have an understanding of the software and hardware. On page 1 of the packet I gave you, I highlighted a few words in the job description. On page 2, Ubiquity has 7 different certifications. Ubuntu has a few different credentials. On page 3, Azure, Microsoft has 2 certifications and 3 exams for network engineer. On page 4, Endpoint NPM Management has 2 certifications and 2 exams. On page 5 and 6, I've also listed out a path for CompTIA on a network specialist. If you have any questions about these, please do not hesitate to contact me. I do have some additional questions about the IT report. The IT report said there were 2 positions lost in 2020. Was this because the positions were cut, or was it because people left? If positions were cut, why? If people left, why did the administration and the committee leave these positions open for 3 years? It confuses me because I've heard over the past few years that the IT department is understaffed and needs help. The report also says that we have 40 servers. Why do we have 40 servers? I could see 4 for Power School, another one for email, and maybe another 5 for other things. What are the other 30 servers for? Then there's a statement we have over 2,000 laptops. We have 1,364 current students, so we'll round that up to 1,400 for easy math. That leaves 600 plus laptops. My guess is we have around 280 teachers and staff. What are the other 320 laptops for? But note that not every student has a laptop because we have an entire middle school on tablets. A good part of the elementary school is also on tablets. I know there's a number of staff on desktop computers, so my guess is we should have between 900 and 1,000 laptops in the school system. What are the other 1,000 laptops for? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Wendy Newell.
Wendy Newell, Hermon, Maine. Last committee meeting, my husband spoke for me. I spoke about the individual the superintendent recommended for network engineer. I said that his profile picture had him in full camouflage with what looked like an AR-15. I would like to say I don't know him or what the situation is about. But with all the school shootings, I would like to know, and a lot of parents would also. I asked the committee to look into this. I even sent an email to 5 Hermon committee members. The only one that reached out to me was Ms. Keyser. She did not have any information about it, but was trying to get some. I hear you say at every meeting that you take concerns and questions seriously, and someone will get back with us. It has been 27 days since the last meeting. I have not gotten a response from anyone who could answer my question. This is truly concerning, and it does not ease my fears and anxiety. I know that other parents probably have the same concerns and would like answers. It upsets me that in the IT report sent out in the packet, the following was said: the IT department is very excited that the school committee is considering a solid candidate for the much anticipated position of network engineer. Then goes on further to say, he's been considered by the school committee. After what another school committee member said at the last committee meeting, I quote, "I was going to say, if we table it, I think it's an opportunity for us to talk about it in the tech committee, about the role, not the individual. That's going to fill the role. But I think talking about the role could be beneficiary." I thought this was a great idea, but it seems like the committee has picked an individual and created a position for them, which I know can't be the case. I hope this time I will get a response to my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Regina Leonard.
Regina Leonard, Hermon. Mr. Chair, I come here tonight to address you and this committee and your complete disregard for parents and taxpayers by your complete lack of communication and transparency. You completely have disregarded questions that have been brought here to you at this podium, as well as any other form of communication that you may receive. The issues here in this town and the division get blamed on one person, one group, one side of the aisle by many other people in town, but when the truth is that it starts and stops right here. This committee and our superintendent have the power to lead and unite by being transparent, forthcoming, and communicating effectively. You have proven to us by the state of affairs here in this town that you cannot lead. If you communicated with us effectively, if you were transparent with information, were willing to work with us to create and implement solutions, we'd not be where we are right now. Doing the right thing is not hard, it just isn't. The more and more we've tried to work with you, the more you shut us out, dig in, and fight back. Why? What are you gaining from your actions? Do you really want there to be more division, more lawsuits, more national press? Your duty and the law demanded that you respond to your citizens and answer questions in a timely manner. It's time to start. I have 3 clear emails out to all of you right now, and I'm still waiting for a response to my questions a month later. It's sad that when the Attorney General's office has told me my only next course of action is the court system. Is that necessary? I really hope not. I know that's not what I want to do, but it's going to be requiring you to do the right thing first. Otherwise, my hand is going to be forced. It came out on Thursday that a letter of claim was filed by the Pines Church. We intend to sue the school for discrimination. The night you voted not to give them their year lease, they saw the writing on the wall. You opened yourself up to this with the questions that you asked and the treatment of the church to rent the space, like many others do and have. Mr. Grant filtered a letter to the church with questions from committee member Christopher McLaughlin that were downright wrong and discriminatory. It only added to their cause to sue. Mr. Grant has opened the school up to lawsuit, and this letter to the church solidified it. I have no doubt the suit's going to be filed. Mr. Grant and Mr. McLaughlin need to do the right thing, admit your faults in this matter, and step down. Jesse, you should as well. You're the chair. The blame falls on you in this matter. When I asked you to your face on Thursday how long you knew about this lawsuit, you refused to answer me and walked away. You allowed the committee and the superintendent to act in a way that many lawsuits could be filed. How many lawsuits is our insurance going to cover? What if they don't? How many lawsuits need to happen before you start doing the right thing? You have an illegal lawsuit in litigation right now that was not voted on by this committee, and you paid a $5,000 retainer. I have the receipt. You've never answered me or the public as to when this was voted on to approve the suit, and you haven't answered it because you never did. Enough is enough. Right the ship, do the right thing, or please step down so that we can find people that can lead us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Tom Hinchcliffe, resident of the band. Got a couple young men at the high school currently, and a couple before then. Appreciate everyone taking the time to come here this evening. I guess one of my concerns is related to what you were just saying. My wife informs me that we have a budget for attorneys with the school board,
it's around $5,000. It's my understanding that we're about, I could be wrong, 5, 6. It's my understanding that it's over $60,000 spent thus far this year. I've been in business for over 20 years. We deal with 4 attorneys fairly regularly. In all the years that we've dealt with the attorneys, even in active litigation, we've never spent that much money because most of my job and what we do is dealing with conflict resolution. I've taught my young men, my young women that have come through.
Mr. Ainsworth, can you just pull the mic up a little bit?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better? I've taught my young men, my young women to deal with conflict resolution. My concern about the budget is that if we have budgets, are we going to stick to the line item budgets? I hear speak about insurance that may cover some of these attorney costs, but to pay for conflict resolution classes for every man, woman, and child in this room would be cheaper than our attorney bills that we've incurred just this year. So my concern as a citizen and a taxpayer here is that I'd love to see conflict resolution actually be happening. I taught my young men and women that conflict is actually a good thing. We're not trying to avoid conflict. Conflict happens in relationships, in marriage. It's how we deal with conflict that's very important. If we deal with it as adults with skills that work on valuing relationships with people, then we can avoid most of the attorneys, in my experience. We try to avoid things leading to litigation and take things to a higher level before we have to call the attorneys and ask for advice. So my recommendation, if it's cheaper and more cost effective, is that everyone involved, we can look into online conflict resolution classes. Seriously, they would be so significantly cheaper. You can get $15 an hour online to learn to deal with each other in this community so that we can focus on positive things, sticking to our budgets, dealing with the real budgets, the students, the things that are important to all of us. So appreciate your time, appreciate your service here. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney Williams.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Okay, can you hear me now? This will be brief because public speaking is not a strength of mine. But I just wanted to say thank you to Steph Euler for the work that she's doing with the third graders through the Junior Achievement Program. My daughter's in third grade this year, and she came home and couldn't wait to tell me about the different types of money she's learning about, and how to save and how to spend. And she even happened to save some of her birthday money for over a week, and that's never happened before. And I would also like to share a quote with Aaliyah when I asked her what her favorite thing was about when Mrs. Oil, is what she calls her, comes to visit the school. And she said, well, she's just really nice, really smart, and she plays games with us. So I just wanted to thank Steph for that. It's nice to see school committee members in our schools and interacting with students and teachers. And I also wanted to echo what Steph said earlier. Thank you to the Key Club because they stuffed 272 Easter eggs for our pre-K students this year. We had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Haig.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Erica Haig. I am a Hermon resident. I'm a parent, and I am a teacher at elementary school. I just wanted to come up here and take a moment to express my support and appreciation to all of you for the hard work and dedication that went into creating an effective school budget that will truly benefit our students, our staff, and our community as a whole. Your tireless efforts and commitment to creating this year's budget have not gone unnoticed or unappreciated. Your ability to balance competing priorities and to make tough decisions shows your deep understanding of the needs of our schools and the community. Your work and leadership is making a real difference in the lives of our students, and I am grateful for your ongoing dedication to our schools. I am confident that your efforts will continue to benefit our students and staff for years to come. Thank you again for your service. And I know I don't just speak for myself when I say we appreciate you, we support you. I also wanted to acknowledge and say thank you to the 30 Hermon High School students, including my daughter, that worked this past weekend to help community members in Hermon, Carmel, Levant, and Glenburn with spring cleanup in their yards. I loved seeing these high school students get out there and dedicate their time giving back to the community. These kids showed us all what it means to be a responsible, caring member of this community. Thank you to Hermon High School for providing this community service opportunity. I know myself and my daughter really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you. John Farley.
Evening, everybody. This might be a little unorthodox, but one of the things that I thought of doing tonight was asking everybody, members of the committee, I wouldn't mind standing. I don't know if that is allowed in these meetings or not. And having all the teachers, educators, anyone that works with schools stand tonight just briefly, just so that you can be acknowledged. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, and you guys have all been doing great jobs. Standing is not something you should do, that's fine too, but just figure I'd offer.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what we commented, Mr. Farley, already on Teacher Appreciation Week. I think it's in line with how we feel about our teachers, so as long as no other committee members feel opposed to just a round of applause for our teachers, for Teacher Appreciation Week. So the teachers don't have to stand, but I would like to give a round of applause.
I'm here tonight to thank all of you for being on the committee. I started coming to meetings a few years ago when my daughter was entering the school as the schools were reopening with COVID. And I came to you, many of you were sitting in the same seats that you're sitting now. Some committee members were different, but I came as a healthcare provider concerned about the kids going back to school and what was going to be happening. And you guys listened to what I had to say, answered emails, things like that. And I didn't feel a need to get belligerent when I wanted my points to come across. I just speak as professionally as I could, even if I didn't agree with every decision that was being made. I accepted it. And, as things roll out, just like everything, there's going to be always somebody who has a different opinion. I'm kind of going off the cuff tonight, but, it seems that, especially over the past few years, we've had one issue after another issue after another issue that becomes the hot topic, depending on where people listen to their information. And, recently we've been talking about books. Kind of an exhausted topic at this point. There's a process in place. If you don't like a book, use the process. That's where I'm going to end with that. I'm tired of hearing about the books every time we come to a meeting, and you guys are expected to be making decisions and doing things for the schools, and you're getting hit with the same topics over and over. So I'll wrap it up just by saying, if you haven't seen the trend, Jesse, I was going to just speak to you tonight. Thank you. You and I have been coaching together for a few years. You're a great dad, great member of the community. You're doing your job as best as you can under fire, and thank you all, because you're all doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I apologize if I mispronounce. Mina Bowery.
Hey there, Nina Bowers from Hermon. I am a student here at Hermon, and I would first like to acknowledge, as many other people have, the support that I hold for most of the school committee members and for all of our teachers and staff here at the school. They are excellent support structures who are always willing to talk and always usually open to everyone and hearing everyone out. I'd like to sort of condemn some things that have been said recently and done. People of the community have taken a disregard and sort of a kick in the face to the policies that the committee holds. Things such as apparently throwing corn have happened. And I simply want to say I find it awful and disgusting. There are policies in place for a reason. I want to voice support for the decisions the committee has made in regarding the library books and the library policies around books. These are in accordance with what the ALA stands for, the American Library Association. They explicitly say things like the fact that librarians are responsible for the collection of books and to force them to censor it in the ways that they want, what these people want, is to provide unjust responsibility onto these librarians. There are many lies about guidance policy that have been spread around. I'd like to make it very clear, although I love our guidance office and they do amazing work with helping general student health, the fact is they cannot help a transgender student in any way within regards to any sort of medical transition. The most that they can do is not tell parents that the kid identifies away at a school. The reason for is because parents, often abuse their kids when they're out. It is a fact. I have friends who are not out to their parents and are out at school who have heard their parents talk about shooting transgender people. It is a simple fact. It will hurt kids if guidance policies like that are changed. I'd like to state that the idea that all transgender individuals are going to be
You can take a moment to wrap up.
Yeah. The statement that all transgender individuals are going to be suicidal because they are transgender is foolish. The only time I've ever been in any sort of dark place in my life is after I had gone through puberty and had not said anything to my parents. I experienced no sexual attraction. To me, it is nothing about who I am interested in. And after I came out to my parents, it lifted all of that weight off.
Okay, thank you. Adam Leach.
Chairperson Keith, Hermon School Committee members. My name is Adam Leach. I'm a Hermon resident and a 30-year educator. Sorry, that number's getting a little big for me. Currently in the Bangor School Department. First of all, thank you to Mr. Grant for a thorough and clear presentation of the school budget at the Town Council meeting last week. I appreciate the hard work and want to share a few comments that I saw as takeaways from the presentation. Things that will help all of us in our consideration as we consider this support for the budget. First of all, budget cost centers. There are 11 of them. They are mandated by the state under the Essential Programs and Services Law. In order for the Hermon School Department to receive these funds, we are required by law to commit a certain amount of local funds. This is not up for debate. If the town votes down any of these cost centers, which we vote on separately, it would mean giving the state contribution back to the state to be distributed to other schools or to go back into the general fund. Those are tax dollars that we paid and we deserve to receive back. Taxpayers and town councilors cannot choose what to cut from the budget. If a cost center is voted down because people disagree with things such as legal fees, library books, these programs are no less essential in the operation of the school system if they're not funded. The only thing that can truly be cut from a school budget is the amount of money that is in excess of EPS. That would come from sports or result in staff cuts, increased class sizes, or draconian cuts such as furlough days. As school departments grow, they become more expensive. They also become more efficient. The money that is in excess of EPS in this budget is incredibly small compared to other school districts. This means that our school is better funded and taxpayers are getting a bigger bang for their buck than we did even just a few short years ago. Things like teacher salaries are able to become more competitive without breaking the bank. What makes schools more expensive? More students, yes, but it is also an expanded tax base, which influences the funding formula. Essentially, what this means is that the burgeoning school budget is because of decades of fiscal responsibility, because of attracting new single-family home constructions. Lastly, it is a miracle that the budget is asking for only a 3% increase in local contribution. Why is it that low? Thanks to the undesignated fund balance, $1 billion plugged the big gap and mitigated the effects of inflation and lost federal revenue. Thanks to wise budgeting, the tuition rate went up, creating a sizable amount of revenue. So I appreciate all of the work that's gone into the school budget and consideration that you've all put into this. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Josh Henderson.
Good evening, Josh Henderson, Hermon, Maine resident. Wanted to speak a little bit tonight about school safety in our schools and maybe a potential way to enhance it a little bit at not too large of a cost. So I know we all know that very recently the SRO officer started working in the schools, and from what I've been told, it's been received extremely well, and it's helping some matters already. So we're obviously very happy to have that position filled and on the job. I found, through looking through the internet, a resource for additional school safety that is put out by the National Crime Prevention Council. Some of us from a certain age may remember some presentations from Ruff, the crime dog. It's been around a long time. But I believe this resource could be a great benefit on top of the procedures and protocols that we already currently have in place. There's a 7-step kind of guideline of how to do it with a toolkit that's 70 pages long, but it's very detailed. I'm not going to read through all the steps, but one of the first step, and the most important one, is to form an action team of members from the school system, community, parents, PTO, and PTA groups. So I think that, school safety, the safety of our children is something we can absolutely all work together on, and I hope that we can get to work on that, hopefully maybe later this summer. I'm going to skip some of the stuff I had because it's been a bit long already tonight, but I did email Chairman Keith, Vice Chair Shorey, and Superintendent Grant that 70-page kit that they have, and I just hope you guys can take a look at it and consider possibly implementing either all or some of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Deb Farnham?
Good evening. I too want to express my appreciation to you all and all of our teachers in our school. I've been coming here for a couple of months now, and I've been reading and watching videos, and I've spoken before about how upsetting it is that we have gotten to this point, and I just wanted to clarify. I had an epiphany earlier this weekend. Talking with my family about these issues, and how we might be able to resolve them. And I think one of the best ways to start the foot forward is by recognizing that we've been talking about one issue, really, books. And I'm not minimizing the fact that people have a clear opinion about what should and what shouldn't be in the school. But the fact is, my biggest concern is this started, because there was an LGBTQ display in our library. That's where it started from. And that's upsetting to me, that there is this intolerance about what is in our society. And I think we can all say that we know people who are gay, who have a lifestyle different than ours, and we like them, right? We like them. It's not just this awful person that lurks and assaults our children in the school. I'm appalled that this has just taken this turn of people actually believing that because there's a book on a library shelf that talks about somebody's alternative sexuality, that therefore it means we're just targeting children. We are indoctrinating children. It's just astonishing to me that there would be that kind of hate. And so I want to, we're talking about the books now. And when I read the agenda for tonight's meeting, and I look down at, the superintendent's notes and the principals, the administration's notes, and all of the wonderful stories of things that are happening in our schools that really don't get a lot of discussion. Some of you have mentioned them tonight, and thank you for that. But I don't mean about it. I mean, Ian, can we please share more of that? We have these great packets of information, and I'm not sure, it was 57 pages if I remember correctly. It's a lot to read. And, it comes out fairly close to, the meeting schedule, and I get that. We've got to compile it all together, and so yes, there is a bit of a cram to try to read all through that. But my suggestion is that you make those particular points of the good stories part of more of that. We need more. We need more because this school is not about all of this book issue. It's not. And we have to remember that. We have to get back to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Ford?
Good evening. I'm Ed Ford in Hermon, and I've got one of those good stories to share too. As part of, and great, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, so that's awesome. As part of my job, I speak to constituents and help them navigate the federal government. I met an 82-year-old woman last week who was caring for an 88-year-old husband. She was having a problem with a government entity. I asked her what she had done for a career in her life, and she said she was a teacher for over 30 years. She instantly spoke of the love she had for her job. She paused and said, that she could remember many of her students' eyes, their voices, and how much she loved her students, 82 years old. And she spoke of the love of her students like it was yesterday. And I asked if it was tough to retire, and she said that once she had submitted her papers to retire, she tried to take them back, but her husband said no. Even today, I bet she'd go back to teaching. I asked her one last question. I said, where did you teach? Hermon Elementary, she said. That's what I call leaving a legacy. That woman is a patriarch of what exists today. That is not the angst that you hear at the podium. It is not the teachers. That is not why the citizens come up here. They come up here because, and here's a quote from the leader, Maine Education, talks about traditional academic learning like reading, writing, and math should be a lower priority in Maine schools than social, emotional learning and programming on race, gender. That's a quote, and that's one of the angst that the citizens feel like that's what they're up against. And I wouldn't have the heart to tell that woman that that's where the schools are as of right now. And so that's the angst. And also that you have an $18 billion budget, and I haven't heard one word about how it's going to improve student outcomes. Not one. $18 billion, for goodness sake. I'm going to end with one more quote. This comes from a website. I don't remember if it's either the elementary Hermon or middle school, but she says a child's education should be a partnership between the administration, teachers, support staff, and the students, families, and community. It is critical that the school leader practices excellent communication skills with all the constituents. This open communication builds relationships between school personnel, families, and in order to help all students reach their academic potential, a partnership should be formed between families and school personnel. That sounds like a recipe to build a legacy to me, but that is not what I feel is happening. And when people come up here, those are the discussions, not the teachers that are creating the angst. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Kim Stewart.
Hello, Kim Stewart from Hermon. I'm Hermon resident and parent. I'm here tonight to recognize Kristen Shorey. Like many others across our school district, Kristen has faced baseless accusations and unfounded criticisms. Despite this, Kristen has shown unwavering dedication and commitment to our students and our community, both local and statewide. I share with you a statement from a mutual friend I have with Kristen. And Kristen, just so you know, she gave me permission to use her name. My family has worked with Kristen Shorey through her work with CDS. Our son was born with a birth defect of the ear, which resulted in hearing loss. Per the state, the hospital was to give the results of hearing tests to CDS in order to start treatment right away. This did not happen in our son's case. A family friend who had worked with Ms. Shorey offered to connect us with her. Kristen reached out very quickly and not only reassured me, but advocated for us right away. What would have taken weeks to months took just days to get us into the system. As a teacher in one of the largest districts in Maine, I know how spread thin these providers and services are. Kristen never once made us feel like she was spread thin, and she made us feel as though our son James was her only client. Years later now, even after Kristen has moved from our location and our son has graduated from both CDS and speech therapy, she still fondly remembers our guy, and we fondly remember her too, and we appreciate staying in contact. In the beginning, when the disability and hard of hearing world was so new and unknown to us, Kristen was a calming but forceful presence. She supported us and advocated for exactly what James and our family needed. Even if it meant more time on her part, we are forever grateful. From afar, I can see Kristen is not only a huge advocate for the students in your district, but also the teachers and parents. She fights for what is right while making sure all stakeholders are heard. Thank you, James's mom, Abby. Kristen, you have been an integral part of our school community for many years, and your tireless efforts have had a profound impact on the lives of countless students, teachers, and families. We thank you for remaining steadfast in your pursuit to represent all families and children in our community and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to item 5, personnel.
You have 2 resignations in front of you. First is for Jessica Como, who was a self-contained tech at the middle school. She has moved on to a different position. And the second position is Alec Dostey, middle school social studies teacher in 7th grade. And he's moving back to New Hampshire where he's from. He got a teaching job close to his hometown, I believe.
Okay, we can move on to transfers.
We have 2 transfers. We had 2 positions that opened. The first one you probably remember actually was, let's see here, was from a resignation just a couple of months ago, and that was the resource room at the middle school. That's the mostly fifth and a little bit of 6th grade. And I am recommending that we transfer Diane Warner, who is a resource room teacher at the elementary school, into that position.
I move to approve the transfer of Diana Warner from Pat's resource room to the middle school resource room teacher, and I know Diane is here tonight, saw her walk in.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
And the second position is Diane's position that she is leaving at the elementary school. Obviously created an opening for a resource room teacher there. And I interviewed just this late last week Holly Scott, who is currently on the 3rd grade team. She started her career as a combo special education, general education teacher, and that's where her heart is, and really was excited about moving back into a resource room. So I would like to recommend her for a transfer of 3rd grade teacher to resource room at the elementary school.
I move to approve the transfer of Holly Scott from the elementary school grade 3 to the elementary school resource room teacher.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. We'll move to C, co-extracurricular positions.
Yeah, and just so you are aware, we obviously have several positions that are being, or have been appointed. We have Mr. Largay, who's returning for baseball. We have volunteer assistant Eric Curtis, who's also returning to that position for, these are both items, excuse me, at the middle school. We have a track volunteer assistant, Jessica McDermott, who is new to the position. And we also hired a new girls varsity basketball coach to replace Coach Cameron. If that name looks familiar to you, you probably recognize it as Tim, not Howie. Mr. Thornton actually began his career here at Hermon High School back in, I believe it was 1985. Coach JV boys, I have his resume here. Coach JV boys from 86 to 88. Varsity girls here from 89 to 94. And won a state championship with the Hermon varsity girls in 1989. So if you go down and look at some of the pictures, you're going to see a much younger, dare I say thinner, Tim in those photos. Yeah, I'm sure he'll appreciate that comment. And has gone on and taught and been an AD and coached a variety of other sports around the state of Maine. So glad to have Mr. Thornton back coaching with us.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to item 6, old business A, excused absence of committee members. This is for the last meeting. We didn't have any absent last meeting. Then we'll go to B, move to approve the second reading of the 23-24 budget. I'm going to open it up to public comment. Okay, I will close public comment. And we need a motion to start discussion.
Motion to approve the second reading of the budget 2023 to 2024.
A second.
Any discussion?
Okay. So there were some small modifications from the presentation on April 3rd to the current proposal. If you saw or looked online, watched the town council meeting on Thursday evening, or went online and looked at the proposed budget, there's no changes in positions. The ED 279 did not change subsequently in that time frame from the April 3rd proposal. However, we did have a shift. We tentatively tonight we're going to be approving the educational technician contract, and so that closed a little higher than what we had budgeted. However, with that expense went up. However, we had some decreases in some of our special education lines and some of our transportation lines expenses. And so those, ultimately, there was a net gain, or I should say a net loss in what we are asking for in regards to expenses. So the budget as it stands right now, we're asking, making a recommendation of a total budget of $19,074,198.62. And again, what most people are obviously concerned about or want to know is how does it impact the local share? And so we are asking for $380,000. I gotta go to that page, I apologize. Mine are all broke out into the varying revenues. We are asking for about $308,011 and some change. And the only thing I would say to the school committee right now is that one of the things that we did ask the town council was to consider looking at the unemployment reserve account, which has about $42,000 in it, and we were looking to have that account changed for out-of-district placements for special education students that might be placed out of district. We have some money budgeted in our current budget for that, for anticipated students that will be coming to us and then be leaving and going out of district. However, if that were to be the case, we would have a lower ask of local contribution if that $40,000 was made into a revenue. So the revenue would increase on that, and that would thus drive down the local additional ask. So basically this, I think you're looking at more like $280,000 if that $40,000 were to be approved, but we just don't have that, obviously, that approval yet. So that, what we are asking for, $308,11, is the max amount. It can only go down right now.
I want to ask a question because I was listening to the public comment and I heard a concern about there was nothing in the budget, this is what I heard, to help with our students with learning, but it was my impression that we were hiring some interventionists to help get caught up and we didn't cut as many learning materials as we have in the past. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think if you're looking at what is the school committee and what are the administrators trying to do, it's, for example, moving some of the federal positions. We have the alternative ed position, which we believe will dramatically impact the trajectory of students that are obviously at risk or dropping out. That was a federally funded program last year. We believe that the program is successful. It has a very high retention rate thus far, and we think that those students are on track to graduate and have benefited from that program. But it is a costly program. So you're talking about a teacher and an educational technician that would be coming over from federally funded to locally funded. Additionally, we're looking to bring the high school interventionist position over from federally funded to locally funded. I spoke a little bit about that position at the town council meeting. Somebody asked what it was, and basically we have an intervention time here, and we have been working with those students. They get tagged and they can get flagged for tier 2 and tier 3 interventions in class. I think probably one of the big asks this year, or the big changes, is that we are really trying to make sure that there is equalization in regards to supplies and not putting a burden on parents, especially parents who, right, you have a couple of kids, you have 3 kids, you get these massive supply lists that come out, and we just feel like, and that's I say we, but that's something that you folks have requested, is that the supplies are purchased by the district. And it doesn't mean that parents can't go and buy specialty items, or if you like these zebra pens like I do, the gel ones, we're probably not going to buy those to all high school students, but at those K-8 levels, they're going to have all their supplies provided to them outside of a few of the specialty items or what parents might want to provide their students. So that was a substantial change this year as well. So we're trying to address some of those programs, supplies, things that we think will obviously impact student outcomes, but they are hard to measure, right? They're not as tangible as, it's hard to measure some of those outcomes.
Thank you for addressing the concern of the parent supplies. I know that was a concern that we had heard from the public, from the comments, so I appreciate hearing that and following through on that.
Yeah, and another thing, actually, it's funny you should say, you triggered a thought. Another thing that we have budgeted for is we are working on a system to allow all our students to get into games for free. So that's something that we've talked about. I think Stephanie, I think it has been you that's been really pushing for that. And so we're working on some type of card ID so that students can come to all Hermon events for free. And that's not just high school students, that's the K-8 students, the K-12 student body. So haven't quite figured out the cards for kindergartners yet. That's not an ideal setup, but I said just let them wear a hawk shirt and get it for free. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But so we have planned on that loss of revenue as well, potentially. We don't think it'll be a lot, but we think that Hermon students, we want to encourage them to come in. If $3 or $5 or however much it is makes a difference, then we want them there. So we've planned for that.
Thank you. The only other thing that I know that we've heard concerns from the parents of is sometimes there's parents that can't simply afford to get into the games. So whether there's some sort of resource offered or some sort of money that boosters could help out with that and just have as a resource, I think that that's important, that all of our families have the opportunity to be able to attend. I know we've heard that concern. And I know that the hallway, correct me if I'm wrong, hallway attendance monitor is one of the first things always cut from the high school. And even though we have the SRO, we know that they're not going to be able to be at the high school all the time. I just think it's very important to be able to have that position, and I'm glad it hasn't been cut from the budget.
And that is a new position, not a position that's being federally moved. So that just sometimes when I say new position, I just I want to make sure we don't confuse federally moved versus created new. So that is a new position.
I have a question. Do you want to go to GX? When jobs are federally funded, do they come before the board? I know that.
Do they come before the board?
Yeah, for approval. When you're funding these positions through federal funds, do those come for the board for approval?
Yeah, I believe that you hired the alternative ed, and tech, the interventionist. Obviously, last month they attempted to bring the network engineer forward. Yes, I believe they all have, but I would have to check the notes from Mr. Chassie because he obviously funded positions federally during COVID too. So I don't know about his time.
Okay. And can you clarify, are contracted services, do they actually have a contract? There's been some confusion on that. Can you clarify?
Contracted services. So it does depend. If you're referencing, like, for example, one of the things we talked about is Acadia. Acadia, we have a contract with Acadia, and they provide the provider. We have a substance and abuse counselor that we have a direct contract with that individual.
Okay. So when you said that the SRO was a contracted service, is that different or?
Nope, Penobscot County provides that individual, interviews that individual, provides a job description. They have been great in meeting with us and talking through the position. They only have one other SRO in the county who started this year as well over at Warrington. And so they've worked with us on, we feel like this works better. We would recommend, ask for these things, whether it's office setup, whether it's how many nighttime commitments you ask that individual to be at or participate in, cover, if you will. So they've been really good to work with, but ultimately they are that individual's boss.
So when it's contracted service, does the paid fund source, is that different than the budget? So when you're budgeting it and it's a contracted service, you're able to use different fund sources, is that true? Or?
No, so it just depends on what the position is. So for Jamie, you should probably come down to the front just in case I need you for anything I can say correctly. So for example, the resource officer is not it's not out of wages, it's out of facilities. So that, you're not gonna see that position out of wages. I don't know if that answers your question.
I know what you're saying, I'm trying to understand, because it's not out of the wages because it's a contracted service.
They pay the officer. We pay them based on their contracted pricing. They say it costs this much. We pay that contract. They pay the officer. They pay the benefits. They pay for the uniform, the cruiser, all the equipment, things of that nature. Anything else that would be included in that, obviously.
Okay. Do you want me to ask that question again? So the question was, if it is a contracted service, it does allow you to use other fund sources at times to cover that, like the ARP's funds can go, or there's other contracts.
Depending on what
specific.
Is this not on?
There you go.
There you go.
Oh. It depends on what the specific purpose of the federal funds are, on whether or not you can use them for a specific contracted service. Does that make sense? Like it has to, whatever the contracted service is, needs to meet the needs of the grant or the federal funds. So with RMS, or the majority of those things are driven by COVID-related needs. And it's the same as like local entitlement federal funds. Those are geared towards specific special education costs. So there's rules within each of the federal grants that we receive as to what can and cannot be paid from them. But whether or not someone is an employee versus a contracted service is not necessarily, it doesn't really matter as far as if we were able to have a service in-house that you might contract out, it wouldn't matter if we had them on payroll or if they were a contracted service. Like the grants they're not picky when it comes to that, if that makes sense. It's more about what the needs are and what, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, like what the best situation is for the school department. So for example, we wouldn't want to hire a full-time sanding company to sand the parking lots, right? So it's a contracted service.
Okay. And it gets stuck under like a cost center.
Correct, and it all depends on what that contracted service is, as to which cost center it falls under. So, for example, that sanding would fall under facilities. The resource officer falls under facilities because it's considered safety. We may have speech contracted services, for example. Those would fall under special education in speech. So it all just depends on what the very specific contracted service is that we're looking for.
Okay. And so I've noticed a lot of the ARPs, all the other schools will scan all of their ARP and information, the money, the grants that they ask for are all scanned into the website and available. I've asked for that to be available. Is that something that we could do? This is a side note to budget that.
No, we have the boxes that are set up to show where we've allocated money to. So that's something I thought Mrs. Perry had put that on the website or had at one point when it was last year, but that's something that we can put on the website so people can see where different art funds are going to. Yeah.
Do we receive funds in any capacity that are used for mental health services other than the local funds? I was getting some emails from DOE and I see they get ease funding. Do we use any other fund sources for mental health services other than what the local ask, what the current budget ask is?
I'm sorry, what was the fund that you asked about?
I'm saying, are there any other funds used for mental health services or other than what's in the budget that's being locally asked to be supported? Are there other fund sources that also go towards that?
Not necessarily for mental health. We have like IEP, 504 related psychological services, like with regards to special ed. Last year we had the Acadia mental
mental health contract, that was in federal funds. There's not enough available for the next year for that.
Back to the federal funds, where that was approved, or the SRO was approved in July using the federal funds, and then you moved it out of that, you talked about using a portion of that money for something else. What is the rest of that fund that was going to be allotted for the SRO? What was that money going to be used for?
We moved quite a bit of it, so we obviously will have a roughly a quarter of a contract to pay for it this year, because they started April 15th. So we'll have until July 1 or June 30 to pay for that quarter of the contract. So that we prorate. We moved quite a bit of that money into the health services. So that's the LPN position at the middle school. So we looked at keeping the nurse on and federal funds for that position. And I don't know where we moved any of that other money for the SRO.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure either. I'd have to look.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can they hear you? I just want to make sure that they can hear what you're saying.
Do you want me to repeat that?
No, I heard you. It's hard to hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can try to speak directly to it.
I think it's the blower behind us that adds the extra background noise.
Where was the revenue for the rental income for Aerocom Night Space 207 broadband? I didn't see the rental income that we have been receiving for that in the. Can you point me to where that is?
We don't have a formal contract with them yet, so it's not placed yet. So I talked to Mr. Berry about that today, and I really want to push the Tri relationship with the Tri-County, thank you, Mr. Keith, contract with them, because they are providing a service to the town. And so I want to make sure that we are all on the same page regarding where that money is going to go. It should probably just come to us directly.
Okay. You had mentioned at the town that there was rental space being used here and that they were paying part of the bill, a part of our electric bills. Can you clarify where that incoming revenue is on the budget?
Yeah, we haven't billed it yet because we haven't finished the agreement.
So the Aerocom agreement that you have currently?
We have an undetermined amount right now that's pending your approval. And I actually was incorrect. They pay their own spectrum bill. We do not give them, there's no parsing out of bills. We cleaned that up on Friday, and I was incorrect when I said that at the town council meeting. They don't get a portion of our bill to pay, they pay their own spectrum internet bill.
Okay, so the electric and things you said that they pay for.
Yeah, I just need you all to, with the town, approve a contract, a tri-party agreement for what we are going to charge them for space, if that's something that the council and the committee wants to do.
So just to clarify that, it's not with us yet, right, to approve. This is a contract that needs to be agreed upon, or at least drafted up as a tri-party agreement with the town council as well, and then there would be agreement from all three parties. If the town wants to provide this service, we'd offer that.
Yes.
We'd offer that through our school.
Yeah, so we obviously reviewed a contract, a tentative agreement. The committee didn't feel like we should set our loan on that. I have sent it to the town, and I talked to Mr. Berry this morning. Frankly, I'm a little tired of taking heat for something that is a benefit to the town. And so one of the things, I don't want to be the district to be perceived that we are getting rich off of a $100 lease agreement with Aerocom when they're providing power access to Jackson Beach and video cameras at Hermon Mountain. So, like Mr. Keith said, if the town and the school committee want to come to an agreement on where that little bit of revenue goes, I'm all for it. If not, they can take their server rack out of our space and go set it up somewhere else.
Okay. So you had also mentioned in your budget presentation that the Main State Library Network would be ineligible. And could you clarify?
I didn't say that. I didn't say they'd be ineligible. That Mr. Thomas brought up that Maine School Library Network is very cheap, if not free. And right now, we are not eligible to explore it until our 5-year contract is up at First Light.
So your contract was up in March?
Our contract. Our contract.
The contract for the district was up in March?
No, so it's from the billing point. So the contract was signed by Mr. Gagne in March, but it's from the actual date of billing, which is December, I believe it's the 27th. It could be the 28th, but it is either December 28th or 27th of 2023.
I will listen back. I'm pretty sure I heard ineligible.
Who was it by name?
Did we clarify? I mean, did we clarify now whether it was said or not? Is it clarified now?
You could change the word to not, we're not considering it at this time until we are through with the contract in December. I think is really what you probably meant, Mike.
No, I think one of the counselors mentioned that we would be ineligible if we had a company that was receiving funds for that internet provision because it's through Maine School Library Networks. And I just said we can't consider it right now because of the contract that we do have. And at that time, the school committee, I would assume, would like me to put out an RFP on what internet we would like to go with. And at that point, we'll obviously make a decision that meets our bandwidth needs and our price needs.
I'll jump into the question back to the reserves. So the employment reserve at $42,000, we discussed renaming that to the other district. You mentioned it earlier. I just want to clarify. We have, or ask I should say, we have estimated 2 needs there, right now in our budget.
Yes, that's correct.
2 needs.
Yes.
So if we were to rename this, one option is to keep those, since we know they're needed, to keep those in our budget and then rename the unemployment reserve to the district reserve in the event a third need, whether it be a student moving in or another need arises, we could use that reserve for an unexpected need.
Yes, you could do one of 2 things. You could do exactly what you just said and hold that for a third unanticipated need. As you know, things change dramatically or can change over the summer, and so you could use that to fund your second position, but then you would have no backup funding if we had that third need.
But do we have 2 needs that we know of now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you say which account you meant? Can you repeat which account you were?
Yeah, it's the unemployment reserve account for $42,170.
The town council had also mentioned about the enrollment stabilization reserve, and it was overlooked that money wasn't allocated for anything, and unsure what it was. Have you clarified what the need is for that to stay there, or if that's money that can be put towards this budget to offset the cost?
Mrs. Keiser, I did not look into the history of the enrollment stabilization. I think Mr. Snyder probably nailed it when he said this was for a time when maybe enrollment was going to drop dramatically, or there was something unanticipated with the 8279. It was created to help in a tough time. That I think that he would have the local history. Yeah, I think I said that right. So I didn't look into the actual history of why that was created. Obviously, we had not planned on using that funding when we went through Finance Committee, but it is obviously there.
One option we could consider too is, I know we're discussing renaming one already, but we could repurpose that $100,000 as well, or I should say to the school capital improvement reserve, since we've depleted all of that. We have 0 in that now, we know. At least 2 CIP projects that we want to look into next year that the Hermon High School science labs and the air quality heating systems there in high school. It makes me a little nervous that we have zero at school capital improvement reserves.
Given, so the internet, we're paying around $52,000 a year. If we use the Main State Library Network, it would be nearly free, if not free. That's a huge chunk that we could be using for something else. I'm not sure if the board would reconsider the position on continuing to allow the current use. I don't even know, is there a cancellation fee, like what that contains of? I saw in the meeting minutes that you guys had looked at getting rid of it. You said it at the town council meeting by June 30th of last year, the current contract. So I'm trying to...
I don't know what their cancellation policy is. Obviously, my mentality when drafting this budget was that we are 8 months. We're 8 months roughly away from ending that contract. The important thing to know with that contract is that it was amortized so that it included a fiber build out. So we do anticipate them to be much, obviously one of the things that when we looked at how long we're locked into this contract, right, 5 years is a pretty significant amount of time to be locked into a contract. At least I feel like that's a long time. One of the things that I asked Mr. Wheeler to look into was we can't continue to pay $4,000 for internet. That's too high. And so we have told them that we will not be paying that much in the next go around if we elect to go with them, and that we will shop competitively for our internet because we need a much better price. It's too high. So again, my thought process was I'm not going to explore canceling where we're going to be out of this in 8 months, and then we can shop for the best deal.
Well, why would we shop? If we did the Main State Library Network, they take care of all of the bid process, I believe, in setting you up for all of that.
I don't know about that. I haven't looked that deeply into their process.
I think it's definitely, we'll consider it, but I was trying to recall, I think I was on here when we did the other one, or it was 5 years ago, maybe I wasn't. But I remember there being discussion previously about that particular LTI and that network was not strong enough to support the amount of devices we have. Like, just for instance, Brian could speak, but in this building, every child either definitely has a phone, and they pretty much have an iPad and a laptop, like they bring their own iPad and laptop. So everybody in this building, it's like 3 to 1. So the amount of devices that we're taking from, I remember us putting in new hubs and things because like the second floor wasn't getting access to things. So I think, it does look like something that will be on the docket for everybody to be investigating with the IT committee on what the options are and how reliable and efficient it would work, because we can probably all agree that yes, it's expensive, but we don't want to decrease the service that everyone currently is able to have when they're here in this building or other buildings as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I actually have reached out to other schools, and specifically Hamden has around, I believe, over 2,000 devices, 2,600 students, 400 staff, or 24 computers and 600 staff. They only have one server, and they have more than enough bandwidth to tolerate all of that. So I'm just curious, less than that, less students. Very clearly, their service is fantastic. I mean, it services the University of Maine, which has far more complexity than our school, I would think.
I would assume so, yeah.
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 Jesse, do you need board approval to change names or reallocate the funds?
I think what we'll end up doing, if the committee would like to, it'd just be an amendment to the original motion to make whatever changes the committee would like to make.
I have another question. I don't have it right in front of me, but Mr. Grant, you had written in your report, I believe, or somewhere in there about will share and rooms and all of that.
the last meeting how many thousands of dollars we spend on all these different platforms. Is that something is Roche something that could be used at all preschools to eliminate those other huge contracts? Or is that platform is set up as something that can be used at all preschools?
Yes, so the way the platform is currently structured, it can be used at all 3 schools. It does not replace PowerSchool. PowerSchool is where grades and attendance and where our reports to the state get pulled from. It cannot replace PowerSchool right now. That's through Pearson. That's our Pearson product. However, we do anticipate it obviously to be the way we statically communicate to parents. So posting of syllabi and classroom, matrices, the course-wide expectations. Trying to think of some of those other. It provides one-way and two-way communication between teachers and students and teachers and parents, which we're pretty excited about. And we are, like I said, I think I wrote in this report and the last report, we're currently being trained because it's part of our website developer package. It's an add-on to that package. And I just think that communication directly from parents to students and the ability to see information on the app that you hopefully already go to look at the website, to look at probably really more the athletic events, but I've seen the parent side of the demo, and when you pull it up on your app on your phone, once you link to your child's account, similar to PowerSchool, their courses pop right up. And so you can click on their courses, you can click on their clubs, you can click on their varsity sport, their JV sport, whatever it is, and you can see announcements that would come from that teacher, or announcements from a coach, or announcements from a club advisor. And so what we are trying to do is we are trying to streamline and make things accessible, easy, intuitive. And so as far as, I'm not sure, those are our 2 big bills from a technology standpoint, is Pearson and ThrillShare. Do we have anything else that's in regards to how we communicate that we
I think
pay subscription?
is S'mores?
We use Seesaw.
And Seesaw.
Yeah.
We do use S'more for my newsletter, but I pay for that myself.
Oh.
She pays for that herself.
But you can write me a check if you want.
With your massive school committee stipend. And then there are some other products that, like for example, we use Swiss to track behavioral data, so that's a little bit different. We have NWA subscription, which is through this, that's our testing software. So some of it, you'd like to be able to just get it all into one, but some of it, right, it serves different functions, and unfortunately is necessary for effective use of the school.
And that's not something PowerSchool can utilize, putting the syllabus and things on there and communicating with it.
Not as intuitively as ThrillShare as that. This is what the website is designed to do. So when they showed me the product and showed some mock schools and showed the principals, we just felt like it was a superior product to anything PowerSchool could pump out. But they also don't do grades, so we couldn't just get rid of PowerSchool.
And back to the possible, I thought you said you were under a memorandum of understanding over at the town council. You were under a current agreement, is what I heard you say.
Yep, we have a memorandum of understanding for them to upkeep it currently. Yep. I think I've shared that with the committee.
So my question is, how much of the equipment is bought by taxpayers that they're using for their company? Is there a way that they track that? How does that? How do you separate the two?
Well,
Whether it's
they have their own server and they have their own rack. So I don't, whether they use I'm not trying to be tongue in cheek, but whether it's our extension cord or theirs, I don't know. I would have to go in and do an audit of that system with Mr. Wheeler to say is what's not ours and what's theirs. That's why I think we need to get on the same page, because ultimately, whatever that lease agreement ends up being or not being, it's such a small amount of money that it's not worth any misperception of the district making money off of the sale of internet, right? We're looking, I think the agreement we tentatively looked at was $150 a month to lease either want to help the town or I just want to be done with it. And let's just go find some place else to plug it.
So they have their own server?
Yeah.
And their own-
They have their own equipment, yeah.
Okay. And so you're saying that contract is with the school, but we're doing it for the town? Is that what you're saying?
So what I'm saying is that the way I understand it, they have an internet that they have come in to their rack, which uses our electricity and our tower. And one of the things that they do is they provide security. I call it security, whether it's surveillance, but they keep the cameras in the towers up for some of the town, use.
Is that why it's located in the school, so they can use our tower to get those signals out?
Yes.
Jackson Beach or
Hermon Mountain, on the hill here on Union Street, Main Energy. There are other towers, but the school is kind of the hub of where one of the centrally located towers is. And so what used to happen was, again, there's quite a bit of history here, but it used to be that the school and the town, right, they were so intertwined in internet and employees, right? They used to reimburse us. We provide an employee for some amount of time. And so what we tried to slowly do is just separate some of those services. And so that's why when we came and talked about that agreement several months ago, it was recommended that we have a tri-party agreement because we're still somewhat connected because we have something here that we're getting, or technically going to get a lease for, that is providing a service to, I think it's basically security, those cameras at Jackson Beach or Freedom Industrial Park, and when they go down, that company gets called, but then they come here and work on it because that's where the problem usually is. So it's kind of messy, and it just needs to be clearly agreed upon or done away with.
Or the town could just take care of their own cameras and their own internet and server and start fresh.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I talked to Mr. Berry today and said, hey, I'm going to be reaching out because I just feel like we need to get on the same page and make sure that everybody understands where the town responsibility is, where the school responsibility is, and where private entities sit, right? So that there's no perception of wrongdoing.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'd like to make an amendment to the motion to just add rename the unemployment reserve to out-of-district reserve. And I would like to move the amount of the enrollment stabilization reserve into our CIP reserve. Any discussion?
So in this budget, yes. Okay. In this budget, there's no fluff or plans to add money into capital projects or, I mean, I was at the meetings, but I'm not sure what other discussions go on, so I'm just trying to.
I can try to answer that question. Sure. I want to make sure I get the question right, I guess. The only capital improvement project we have from reserves is coming from the athletic complex reserve. So I think there's $256,000 in this budget for the track and the turf football field, and that's it. I mean, our capital improvement reserve is zero. I believe, Mr. Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we use that as part of the track. Jamie?
Yes, I believe an additional $300,000 that was in that account was allocated to the track.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mrs. Keyser?
When building a budget, so each year you don't set aside a certain amount of money for a reserve to set for upcoming projects to help build towards that project?
We did not in this budget.
Not in this budget?
Yes.
I saw you guys do coming up next year.
so one of my concerns that I expressed to the town council on Thursday night was that I don't believe that we've adequately planned for additional capital improvement projects. We will need to do that next year and take the fall to look at a couple of the things that we believe are up next on the list. And I think one of the things was some science labs here at the high school, taking a serious look at the heating and ventilation system here at the high school. And did I have anything else in there? Bus garage? Yeah. And that's a big ticket item. Well, and the heating system is, well, they're all expensive. Looking at a new bus garage, and we had a great audit or capital improvement plan done in 2019. Unfortunately, those numbers are woefully, you should see what the track cost back in 2019. It was, things have changed a lot in 3 years. And so we'll have to take some of those recommendations, things that we didn't get done, and get new numbers and start planning accordingly.
So you had stated that the ARP funds are drying up. I mean, I don't know what that looks like for you. So what does that mean as far as the funds that are available? Because you also have some funds that will be there for positions next year, is that right? Like nurses or?
Yes. Yeah, we'll be out of money next year. The ARP money will be expired. It has to be used by next year. So it has to be used in this current 24 budget.
Okay.
And if it's not used, right now we're under the impression that it's gone, correct, Jamie? That's what.
Correct.
So you have a place where everything you're funding out of the ARP can be found and shared?
Yes. Not penny for penny, because we still haven't, we have to, obviously, one of the things you all approved was a one-time payment to the ed techs a couple of months ago. So we just have to figure out, obviously, how much that's going to cost at the end of the year. But yes, for the most part, we've got most of that money allocated for, because it's grants. So we wrote a grant for this, and we wrote a grant for that. I say we, Mrs. Perry wrote grants for those things. And so that's something that we can show, this is what we plan, right? That we have a budgeted plan for this money. Yeah.
So with this school budget, there's no other funds being used for any of the things that are in the budget that will be covered by any other grants?
No, what you're voting on is local budget. That's what you're voting on. The nurse at the middle school, that's out of ARP. That's not in this budget. That's ARP funding. So like last year, you didn't see the alternative ed teacher.
Any other questions? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carries. That takes us to item 7, new business. A, move to approve a remote day for June 13th, voting day for as school. I'm going to open for public comment. Close public comment. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve a remote day for June 13th, which is voting day at the PAD school.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Did Mrs. Davis want to come down and explain what that would look like for families and teachers? I mean, the teachers probably didn't know, but.
Mrs. Davis, would you, or do you call her? She's coming? Oh, okay. Before Mrs. Davis talks about what that looks like, I just, for anybody that's new here, that's like, why is there a remote day on the last day of school? The calendar just happened to fall. It's probably the superintendent who doesn't call enough snow days, or some of the students at Danforth's checkout. But anyways, we had some concerns in regards to the overall security of our students on voting days at the elementary school. And in talking with Mr. Barry, moving our site to vote is an extensive process. it just really is probably puts a lot of undue stress on the people who do voting at the town, or who run that. And so one of the things that we talked about was, what do we do? Because especially on the last day of school, you have kids outside, they have field days, you have parents coming into the school to pick up, right, all the art supplies and the posters and everything they've crafted. And so managing who is there, God forbid, for nefarious reasons, would be very challenging on the last day of school. And so we moved to remedy that, not only moving forward, but certainly for this year. So Mrs. Davis, what does that look like?
Sure. So, can you hear me okay? We had a lot of feedback from families that they were just really uncomfortable with having, like Mr. Grant said, having school there while voting is there. The last day of school for the high school and for the middle school is a half day, so students would be missing, that half day. And usually, like Mr. Grant said, we usually do a lot of outside activities, so that creates an additional layer of issues that we would have to deal with, as opposed to November, where we're not typically outside as much except for recess. So our plan for the remote day is students would end school on the 12th. On the 12th, students would go home with a packet of work for the summer. And so we know, especially at the elementary level, one thing that we often see is what they call summer slide. So students can lose up to 35% of the skills that they gained over the course of the school year by not working on those skills over the summer. And so we thought that this would be a great opportunity for us to prepare families with resources that they can use over the summer. So they'll have physical work that they can bring home. They can start working on that work right that Tuesday, the 13th. We're also going to have each grade level team send a video home for the families. So there'll be a QR code and a link that families can access with information about how they can help prevent the summer slide. So for example, it may be 20 minutes a day of reading a book of your choice, or journaling over what you do in your summer, over the summer, to keep up your writing skills. And so our approach to this challenge that we're faced with this year, ending the school year, is to provide some work for that remote day, but to also extend it so that hopefully our students are maintaining skills over the course of the summer. Any other questions?
The major logistic is lunch. We have to provide lunch that day. So we will be sending home a bag lunch to students the day before. And I've talked with the deputy commissioner, and I told him what our plan was. He thought it sounded good. And so we don't have to seek any waiver approval because we're not missing the day. And he said that as long as the committee approves that and it's we have a well-designed plan, then that should count.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you.
Stay here because I'll be coming back, I'm sure, for that.
Any other questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, that takes us to B, move to approve the purchase of a new school bus. I'm going to open for public comment.
Chairman Keith, I know that public comments are normally done at the beginning, and I know we've been talking about buses and how you might change, and you mentioned at the council meeting maybe some change in how buses are being purchased. If I have a question, could I reserve the ability to ask it after your presentation? I don't want to be presumptive, but in case there's any clarity, do you mind me asking?
The policy requires that any public comment happens before committee discussion.
As a representative to the council for the budget, is there any way that there's leniency as the chair if I have a clarity question I could ask so that I can accurately advocate at the council level?
Yeah, you can feel free to talk to me or Mr. Grant after the meeting.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate the flexibility.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'm going to close public comment. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the purchase of a new school bus.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
This was already budgeted
Yes, it was.
Just to clarify, this is from last year's budget that was approved?
Yeah, so I'll try to not confuse you with the way that this is the last bus that we would like to buy on lease. It was approved last year via the budget process. That would have been done in either April or May. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I did not realize that that actually needed to also be brought to you for approval. We are getting it this week. So the bus we ordered last year, we're getting it this coming week. And so I'm coming to you for approval. We have brought forward encumbered funds from last year's budget, which we budgeted. We have budgeted money for this year, and then we will have 2 more years of payments for this bus. But like I said, this is the last bus that we would like to do this way. Moving forward, we would like to fund the bus outright. So what we are going to do is we anticipate, we've been told by our bus supplier that right now we're looking at 18 to 24 months from date of order to actually getting the bus. So if we get approved for a bus in 23, like now, so if we get approved for a bus in this month or next month, what we would like to do is we know that bus will get approval, but then we know that bus will not get here until potentially 24 or 25. And so what we would do is we would set aside some money at the end of next year's budget and then use reserves and the budgeted amount to buy the bus outright to avoid financing costs and doing these 3-year cycles with a down payment. Did I say that pretty clearly, Jamie?
I think so.
Okay.
And it took a really long time to build this bus that we're getting this week, right? Because the order was put in.
Yeah, we ordered it last year.
Right.
So we're a year out and they're telling us 18, maybe even 2 years. So we're planning on not receiving, so if we get approved for a bus this year, we do not anticipate it, honestly, even at this time next year. We think it's actually going to be potentially fall of 20, what are we in, 23? So the fall of 24 or the spring of 25. We think it could be 18 to 24 months out before we even get it. And then that time we'll start to move money, access some of our reserves, and start buying these buses outright. So we're not in these 3, right, you're paying these yearly payments and you don't even have the buses. And then you're encumbering funds forward from the previous year that you've set aside, and the supply chain shortage is really making financing, it's very challenging. So we just rather buy outright.
I want to make sure I'm on the same page. The time gap is throwing me off a little bit. So this bus is for 2022. So this bus, the funds for this bus was approved by the committee and town council last year. Okay. And we're getting it this year because of the delay, manufacturing delay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And that's bus number 2, and this is bus number 3 that we're voting.
You lost me on that one.
Well, I was thinking there were 3 altogether that we previously, like we had one new bus, I don't know how many years ago, 2 or 3 years. And we already voted on the bus that's coming this week. We've already approved it. And this is the one for the following, or not?
Okay, so you have not approved this.
The one that's coming
bus
this week.
Coming this week.
Okay. We budgeted for, but we didn't bring it to vote.
I should have brought it to vote in that first month I was on the job. I should have brought that to vote in. Well, maybe it could have been May. It was either April or May. I don't know which month. I just assumed through the approval of the budget, that meant you approve a bus.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't work that way.
Yes, the question is, I actually was at that meeting and I remember you guys voting on the bus. So I guess that was my question, because at times you said it wasn't a bus, it was a van. Is this that or that's something different?
No, they did. Actually, I think we voted,
675,000.
yes, one of the ARP approvals that we wrote for was a micro bus, but that's not this. You did approve a micro bus, but that's not this. This is a full-fledged, I think it's a Bluebird.
But it
was built in that budget.
Yes, it was in the 22 budget, yes.
And
Which-
this-
Which bus was approved?
We needed brass.
Can I try to help? Can I try to help? Okay. So last year, we did vote on a bus. It was a mini bus that would be coming out of federal funds.
Yes.
Due to the supply chain, that mini bus is also delayed. Okay? I think the last update I got on that is potentially fall, maybe this coming fall. But that one is coming from federal funding.
So that one is not in this budget?
That is
because it
not
doesn't
in this
come from
budget.
State and local, okay.
Correct.
Yep.
So normally, we are in a 3-year rolling period with leasing buses. So in FY '22, we would have had the FY '21 year number 2 lease, the FY '20, let me see if I can get through this. There was, okay, the short of it is, in FY '22, there were 3 leases. One of them should have been for the bus we should have received in FY '22, but it's not here until this coming week. Okay, because of the supply shortage. So normally we have 3. Last year, the 3rd payment was for FY '22 for the brand new FY '22 bus, and because of supply chain, we did not have that money, so we're able to roll it into forward to be able to put it towards the bus this year. Plus, we have the payment in FY '23 for what would have been payment number 2 for the FY '22 bus, and payment number 1 for the bus that we should receive for FY '23, which will probably be 18 to 24 months out from now for delivery.
So you guys just did your audit and then you found that amount of money left over that was supposed to be allotted for from that budget? Is that what I would assume?
That was at the beginning of the budget process. We had spoken to the town to find out how we handled this because the funds we did budget those funds in FY '22 for this bus, and it was going to put us behind, and the town said that we were able to, for lack of a better term, encumber it to the next year. So that is what we're doing.
Okay. And then, Micah, can you clarify, so you're saying that was that 2022 year coming forward, and then you're asking us now for money to go towards that out of this budget? No?
No, what we would do is jump in if I need to.
So the 2023 year we're in?
Right now,
Yes.
we also have payment in this year's budget
Okay.
for what you voted on, or what we're currently in. So we are about to make a 22 payment from that money and a 23 payment.
Okay.
Both monies voted on, approved, budgeted.
Okay, so it was there, just, okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thanks, Jim. Okay, C, move to approve the network engineer job description. I'm going to open for public comment.
Craig Overman, I'll just be quick. Again, I'd like to reiterate, I'd love to see some sort of certification for that individual on one of the programs that I handed to you. I think that's, it just shows that they're qualified, they've been certified by the organization that designed the software. I think it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Way beyond my scope of understanding any of it, but when I heard Wendy speak, I did get online and look. So if you haven't had a chance, I mean, I don't know a lot about IT, but I did see some kind of concerning stuff just scanning through the Facebook. So I think it's something that you guys need to think about a little bit more security-wise. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is your microphone on?
Hello?
There we go.
This is not a world I'm very familiar with, but
Just name and town of residence again. I know you already said it,
Nina Bowers from Carmel. I'd like to support what Mr. Nola said. He talks about it a lot. He focuses on this stuff a lot. And as a student, I think that the idea of having our team have, our IT guys have certain certifications sounds like an obviously good idea. Our technology in the school is iffy at times. We've had, like, the programs that are used for blocking and stuff, block the National Archives in our history classes before. Our technology is sometimes abysmal. So I'd like to support what Mr. Knoll said. There should be certifications for this jobs.
Can I ask him a question?
Thank you, yes.
When you say your technology is iffy, do you mean like the speed, or do you mean, what do you mean by iffy?
A lot of things. We have had many instances this year of our internet completely going out throughout the building. There are certain rooms that internet will not work in. There are lots of things that are crucial to finding information, like the National Archives and other .gov websites that are sometimes blocked by the security programs that the school uses. And it's very hard as a student to understand why those things happen. And I think that having more qualified IT personnel is definitely important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Godspeed, Herman. So I work in IT. And I apologize, I have not read the current job description. I do agree with having some certifications. However, I would like to say that in lieu of certifications, job. You know, hear me? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was projecting well enough. So the certifications are important, but so is job experience, especially in IT. Knowing several people that work with me that don't necessarily have certificates, but they have years of experience that helps them do their job more than a certificate would. Though again, certificates, even in my position, are important. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that it's not that yay or nay, like that shouldn't be an end-all be-all. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'll close public comments. I need a motion.
I'd move to approve the network engineer job description.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Oh, yes. I was curious what our needs are for our school that would require a network engineer. I checked in with other schools and they don't have that position and that high-level position. Can you explain the complexity of our system compared to others?
Honestly, no, I can't explain our system in that type of, probably the detail that you would need me to explain it in. I can tell you that we have a very complex network, as you can see from the job description, that has some pretty specialized skills. We have a lot of free source or free open source software. We have an extensive phone system that relies on the internet, and we have, I think, over 150 AP points that run Ubiquity. And so for us, like Nina said, this is exactly why we need this position, is because we do experience those outages, and everything is so interconnected here. That's why we think that this position is critical. One of the things that happened is that we haven't had a directory update in several years, which that would also be a primary part of this position, is providing us with a directory update. As you know, we have our own Class C servers that we have over 500, I believe, IP addresses, and we just have a very complex system. I understand the confidence that putting certificate next to a qualification does, I get that. However, that being said, I completely agree with what one of the speakers just said. The critical element here is job experience. And in Maine, there are not necessarily, it's very challenging to find network experts in the state of Maine. And so for us, job experience is, it's, you know, and you'll notice it says must demonstrate specialized knowledge. We're not asking for a certificate, but when you get a candidate for this position, you could certainly say, you know what, they're just not as qualified as we'd like them to be. We don't see any certificate. That's totally up to you. But we think making it so narrow, it would actually be very detrimental to the job pool. So, like I said, I'm a big believer in job experience as well, over certificates.
Can you repeat how many IP addresses?
I believe it's over 500. I think each sees. I don't think Jeff is here, is he?
No, it's about 500, two Class C subnets.
Oh, sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, we have two Class C subnets, about 500 IPs.
About 500 IP addresses, two Class C servers, right? Did I say that right now?
Class C subnets, yes.
Class C subnets,
yeah.
Jesse, I want to make a motion to extend the meeting to 9:30, just for time's sake.
I think the Celtics are playing tonight.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Chris?
Again, it said 40 servers in our packet, and still trying to figure out why we got that when Massachusetts schools only have one.
So you're kind of starting to ask me some questions that are a little bit above my knowledge right now. And I think what would be beneficial is if we were to, or if you were to approve the job description, having Mr. Wheeler come in to talk about maybe an overarching, this is our network, this is what we have, this is why this position is important, and this is why, you know, we do experience some of those things that, you know, a crash or, you know, the comment was made, I don't know who made it, it's irrelevant, but we did lose somebody to death 2 years ago, and then we lost somebody to retirement, and we ultimately have not replaced those two positions. And so we are short-staffed. It wasn't by choice. We are trying to find a qualified individual, and so that's what's come out of this job description, or what we're trying to achieve with this position.
And so those positions, when you said you retired, is that what you said, and then passed away?
We had yes, somebody passed away, and we had a retirement.
Were those positions fell out of the budget then, the financing of those, because you didn't replace them, so you moved that along and out?
It wasn't while I was here, so I don't know where the money, if it went to a teaching position, or I don't know what they did with the money.
I didn't, you had posted it, you said I didn't, you said you, at the last meeting you posted it on serving schools, I didn't see it listed. Is it still listed? Okay.
Yeah, it was posted on serving schools for about 3 weeks.
I know it says here 3 years of experience, but let's hope we find someone with more. However, I don't know what the pay scale is, so that always ends up, like you said, being a narrow scope is not good to do.
That actually initially in the first draft said 5, and I struck it and put 3, just because of what I saw come in the first go around when we posted it.
I mean, these are great questions. We probably could have ironed out a little of them at tech committee meeting.
I believe that the job description is between myself and the administrative team to then bring to the full school committee for discussion and ultimately approval. And I can assure you I did not make this in a silo or a vacuum. It was done with the IT director and talking with the building principals.
If you have, do you have amendments that you wanted to make to it, to try to amend the motion? Is that what I'm hearing?
Not necessarily, I mean, there's other discussions, all these other questions I'm asking that sort of have to do with the job description, clarifying. you said it wasn't in our current budget, then you said it was being funded through ARP. Can you clarify that with the going ahead to hire and then possible candidate waiting and all of that? Can you clarify how that's going to be funded? And there was some confusion. Who's maintaining the network now?
Our IT department.
So there's not someone working in that position under a contract now?
No. We don't have a network engineer.
It looks like we need one, so we should move forward and approve it, and then we can ask that person all these questions of things that we need to know.
Any other discussion?
Just approving the job description, approve the position?
No, it would come through for hiring, just like any other position.
No, approve the position as in budget-wise, just approving the job description, approve the budget
No,
along it.
no. It's just the reading of the job description. It's not the budget.
This position is not in the budget. This is in ARP funding. And that's what it would be for next year. This position is not currently budgeted for in the budget.
But it will be next year, and there's an amount there that says this, that will determine how much they make. We haven't been part of that discussion, so we don't know if it will be.
Well, next year, I will obviously make a proposal to move certain federal positions forward. And at that time, the school committee can decide what positions, if it found them, just like we did this year, do we find the all-dead program to be worthwhile, the interventionist, the middle school nurse next year? There will be positions that we'll have to make decisions on, and that will be up to the school committee at that time.
Isn't it a known fact that our IT department is understaffed?
I believe we are understaffed, yes.
And I'm wondering, in your research, how many people did you see that other schools employed for IT?
3 for 2,600, 3 staff.
Oh, okay. That's different than what I had heard from other schools, so. And what school is that? Bangor, I had more to my understanding, so I'm just curious.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that takes us to D, move to approve pre-K to be a 5-day program in 23-24. Open to public comment. Close for public comment. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve pre-K to a 5-day program for 23-24.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just had questions as far as spacing and staffing.
Those are great questions. So we were approached by the board earlier this year, and I've talked to a number of parents that really wanted pre-K to go full day. Unfortunately, due to the size of the school right now, making pre-K go as an all-day program, we would have to do one of two things. We would either have to cut the enrollment in pre-K in half, so going from 64 kids to 32, or we would have to build an addition to house pre-K onto the elementary school because there isn't any space. And so I understand the parents' concerns around finding high-quality pre-K programming and childcare. There is a serious need in this area for high-quality early childhood education. And so a way that we thought that we could address some of those needs would be to move that pre-K program from 4 days a week to 5 days a week. And that way, it might help ease some of the burden of finding childcare for that Friday, that the 4-year-old program, the pre-K program, is not in session. I would love to see eventually an expansion of our pre-K program so that we're able to meet the full day requirements. At this point, I don't see that feasible. So this is at least a step in the right direction.
So Melissa, just to clarify, because right now they're 2 half-days, so it would be, 2 sessions per day. So, but they would be, still remain half-day sessions, but be 5 days a week
It would
versus
be
4.
Correct. So we have 2 pre-K teachers and 2 pre-K ed techs. So we run 4 sessions a day. So 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. This would extend it to that Friday, which they are currently not in session.
So is that something that you've already, the staff has agreed that you have staff for that, or they will work 5 days?
Yeah, it's a matter of moving our schedule around, looking at our schedule and making sure that they have equitable prep time to the other teachers in the building. Right now, their prep time is on Fridays. And so looking at our schedule and making sure that we can have, and I've already started that process. I don't think it's going to be difficult to add in that prep time for them. It's just a shift. And I have been talking with the pre-K team about doing this. They know this is going up tonight.
And will those students have, do they have access to the Unified Arts or only certain?
We don't. Their schedules are so limited, as it is about 2.5 hours. It's run as a state-funded or state-supported 4-year-old program. And so when it's under that 4-year-old program designation, there are certain requirements that we have to meet. So one example is we have to provide them with a snack time, we have to provide them with some recess time. And so once you plug all of those things in, your academic time, your time to work on early literacy and early math, social skills, and play time for them, once you add those electives in there, those unified arts does really limit us.
I agree, it's a good step in the right direction.
To accommodate for this, and maybe you answered this already, but would we be adding any resources?
The one addition would be the bus run on Friday would be added. That would, I think, Micah, that's the only thing that we were.
Any other staffing?
No, we would not be adding staffing.
So the existing pre-K teachers would?
Right, they would still, they work on Fridays now, it's just adjusting their schedule so that their prep time is spread out rather than all in one day.
Okay, all right.
Will that have any massive impact, I would assume, on the budget that's already out? Was that built into this budget? Was that not?
Yes, it is built into the budget, but we anticipate, when you look at roughly 2 to 3 extra hours a day for the bus run, it's hard to gauge the transportation cost just because the gas is in and of itself, because you don't know what that loop and circle is going to look like, but we're looking at roughly $8,000 to $10,000 just in the person driving the bus, that extra cost. So we are looking at a small increase, obviously, to add that bus run in, but that's the only major increase, and it has been accounted for.
That department probably got filled with a position with that in mind.
Yes, as long as that person continues to do it that one extra day and is okay with not having their Friday off that day, then yep.
And it's really the middle of the day that they have off, not the whole, or is it different pre-K bus versus? No, but you still pick up in the morning and drop off in the afternoon. Are the pre-K kids mixed in with the other kids in the area, or is it just a pre-K bus?
So the pre-K in the midday is just a pre-K.
Right,
so there's
midday.
that drop off, and then they pick up that PM group, but then there's a mixture on the 2 ends. Yeah. So yeah, you're looking at 2 additional runs for one day.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. I just want to say thank you. I know this is a big change to the pre-K staff and teachers, so thank you for being amenable to this resolution.
Thank you all.
All right, that takes us to item 8, reports. A, administrative reports.
I would just like to advise or inform the committee that the date for the budget, or the second, I don't know if I should call it a presentation, but the second opportunity that I will be speaking at the town council is not May 4th. In talking with the manager today, it will be May 11th. In my report, when I wrote this a couple of days ago, or last week, excuse me, it was May 4th, and that's now May 11th. at 7 o'clock. I asked Mrs. Smith, we had, so you're going to go on to the other reports. I asked Mrs. Smith just to do a quick, we had several questions regarding the Acadia contract and mental health counseling, and I know I fielded several questions, threw them her way during the last 25, 26 days, so I just asked her to quickly follow up on some of those questions.
Sure. So I was not at the last school board meeting. And for folks that don't know me, my name is Leslie Smith, and I'm the Director of Guidance for the district. And I was not at the last school board meeting. However, I did watch the video, and I heard there were some questions on the process of the referral, the consent, and how the billing works with our contracted services. And so what I've done since then is I've reached out to the parents who had those questions and have had conversations with them, and I've also offered conversations. If after tonight, additional parents or committee members have questions, I have a stack of cards here. Please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm more than happy to talk to you about how this works. So we have 2 services that we contract in the district. The first service is at the high school only, and that is through Sheila Thibodeau, an LCSW and a substance abuse professional who is contracted through our district for about 20 years now. She's been working with our high school for 20 years. The services cost us $16,000 annually, and Mrs. Thibodeau does not bill families for this service. This is a service that is billed directly to the district when she works with our families and students, and so there's no insurance or main care involved in that. She serves 3 primary pieces. The first one is due to an infraction on campus by a student at the high school for drugs, alcohol, tobacco, or vaping, which has been an increased problem in the last few years, as you know. And so oftentimes it is a requirement for the student after a suspension to meet with Mrs. Thibodeau in regards to those refusal skills or the impact on those things on their body and how bad they are for them, etc. It is a verbal referral from administration with obviously the guardian's knowledge and consent about it. And then once the referral is made, Mrs. Thibodeau contacts the guardian and then takes it from there. And that is to support that tobacco, alcohol, and drug use. The second piece that Ms. Thibodeau provides for us is short-term therapy for families and students who potentially have a situational going on in their life that maybe they need some extra support on. And the way that service works, again, is the service is offered to the parents, the guardian, and then if they accept the service, then we refer the information to Ms. Thibodeau, she contacts the family, and then they take it from there. And then the third piece that we use her for is for our health classes. So as you know, she's an expert in the tobacco, alcohol, drug. She's a professional counselor in those areas. And so she comes in as a guest speaker to let folks know, to talk in our Health 9 or our Health Wellness class, which is our 9th and 10th health classes, and talk about the impacts of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs on our bodies. And so that's part of the health curriculum, and we bring her in for that piece. That's Mrs. Thibodeau's contract, and so again, she is only at the high school. The other contract that we have is with Northern Light Acadia School-Based Mental Health Services, and there are 2 pieces to this support service. And the first piece is clinical therapy. 4 days a week, this person is at the high school, and 1 day a week, this person is at the middle school. This person does not work with our elementary school students, only works with our high school and middle school students. The cost each year is, well, the cost this year is $44,100, and this is our 2nd year using the service. We used it last year for the first time. The way referrals work is parents, guardians, administration, school counselors, or students recognize the need for therapy. And so the service is offered to the family, and if the guardian or the parents decline the service, that's it. We give resources to the family. Here are some other resources in the community that you could possibly use to help support your child. If it's accepted, the Northern Light clinician then meets with the family, does an intake, an assessment, works with them on insurance and Medicare, and comes up with a goal and a treatment plan with the family and the student to move forward in that work. That's the therapy part of the service. The other part of the service is the school social work model, and that is your typical school social work model that you see in many districts. That is not therapy. And so let me give you an example of how we utilize that piece. For example, if a student was suicidal or was in a crisis situation and needed support, we would utilize the person from Northern Light for those pieces to help de-escalate and to always involve a safety plan and then contact the guardian. So this is something like we utilize her for, and we provide that support for those students who are experiencing suicidal ideations. And bringing in the guardian on that as well to come up with a safety plan. And then another example that the school social work model is used for is it's available for students who are feeling stressed out, they're having a bad day, and they just need to kind of decompress and then move back to class. And those are usually like 10 or 15 minutes at the most. But she does a really good job helping to de-escalate our students who maybe are just having a really bad day or something's happened and they just need to work through it. Right now, 22 students are seen for therapy. 7 students are seen for school social work support. All students, guardians, and parents have provided consent for these services. So one more piece. You might ask me, well, if she's billing insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance, then why are we paying this money? Let me tell you what that money covers. So it covers having access to a therapy service. So the billing piece behind it, the clinical supervision that our therapist receives, the group supervision that she receives, any of the clerical pieces, it purchases that. It also purchases that school social work support that I just mentioned when we're trying to support students who might be experiencing a crisis. It also provides free trainings from Northern Light to faculty and staff. So for example, last year at the elementary school, Northern Light provided a trauma-informed training for our faculty. And then we you don't know this, I know this, that we have a suicide prevention training that we are mandated each year to go through. And so that also, we utilize the Northern Light person for that. And then finally, it does cover the costs when a family needs therapy, has expressed a desire for it, and they don't have insurance or Medicare. So I wanted to just kind of go over those. I think that's all the questions that were mentioned at the school board meeting last month, and I think I've answered those questions for the parents over the phone that I've contacted since, but my cards are here. If anyone wants to contact me, please do. I definitely want to keep that door of communication open and widen it so that people know who to go to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say thank you to Leslie for doing that, because I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a huge benefit to our families, because if they were trying to get a counselor on their own, I know there's long waiting periods for many, many types of appointments, so it just seems like what a resource that we have for our students, so thank you.
I think before we move on to the next, we should probably extend the meeting with what we still have on the agenda. We should go to, I'd recommend 10. Can I get a motion for that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to extend the meeting till 10 p.m.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
And then the other person I asked to speak today was Mr. Walsh, just to give an update on, he had a parent council meeting regarding library protocol here at just specifically Hermon High School. And so he just wanted to report out on some of the things that he's been working on with his staff and with the parent council.
All right, thank you, Mr. Grant. Everyone hear me okay? Excellent. Before I begin, I just want to say something. After 21 years being the principal here, I don't care who we hire. but could I please have access to the heating and cooling controls, which are computer-based? 21 years I have not had access. I'm not enjoying tonight's temperature, I'm sure you all are, but I am not. But I do not have access to that system, which is computer-based. So again, that's my pitch for whoever we hire or whatever we do. Click, 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 I could have it 68 degrees in here, just need access. So let me start off with that. So, and I'm not kidding. So last week, my parent council met, and for those who are not familiar with the high school, we don't have a PTO or a PTA. 20 years ago, or 21 years ago, or however long I started a group called Parent Council, where the parents come in on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. We set an agenda, and we pretty much, it's really conversation-based, find out what's going on, find out what information they'd like, we do some presentations. It's a great group of individuals. When I'm looking for candidates to serve, for example, on hiring committees, I always call the Parent Council. When we go through accreditation, which happens every 10 years, I go to the Parent Council, and as parents, I can draw upon them. So if you are a high school parent in the audience and you've never been to a meeting, we would love to have you. You can find us on Facebook. If you are a male or a father, please come. It's almost always moms. We actually had, I think, 2 men at the last meeting besides myself, so that was kind of nice. All right, so the document that's in front of you, you'll notice it says draft over it in at least 2 places. This is a draft. Last week we had our meeting. I'll take you back just a little bit. Back in August, early September, I started working on a document that we could possibly utilize. A policy was approved, as you're aware, in January, and I've been kind of playing with this document, teasing it a little bit. If you have students in the high school, you know every year at the start of the year, we send home forms for things like technology and acceptable use, media so that we can take kids' pictures or have them filmed and then broadcast. We have a form that we send home that allows the military to access demographic information as we do take federal funds. And there's a multitude, there's a big packet that goes home. So the conversation started a little bit around, well, we have a form for technology, we have a form for devices, we have a form for media, we have forms for everything. Wonder if we should have a form when it comes to using library resources. I'm just mentioning this to you tonight because after my meeting last week, I was fortunate enough to attend the MPA conference at the end of the week, where I did keep us in Class B in our sports, so it was a very positive time down at the Samoset. But I was not able to include this in the packet, so I want you to have this ahead of time for next meeting in June. And so this way you can look at this, you can get some questions going in your head. Certainly you can reach out to me in advance if you like, but this way I'm not just surprising you with this in June. June's a big meeting, there's a ton of stuff, we're going to just graduate, and we have a meeting. So I want you to have this ahead of time. June meeting, I'll talk a little bit about the protocols that we think would work with this, and I'll be certainly to share that. Tara Schwartz will be available, that's a library meeting specialist as well. But I wanted you to have this in advance to kind of take a look at. If you have students in the high school, you already know the English department, we send home a form when we're doing books with adult materials, and it gives parents the opportunity to opt in or opt out, and that's kind of the style behind this form. And so just take it, take a look at it. If you have questions before, obviously you can reach out to me, but I wanted this in your hands so you could kind of look at it before the June meeting. So I won't take questions tonight because I'm hot and I'm tired and it's a half hour past my bedtime. But take a look at it, and then certainly in June we can have a further discussion tonight. Okay?
Thank you. Can I add something? Graduation. Since we won't have another meeting prior to graduation, I will send you an RSVP. Actually, Jody will send you an RSVP. Can you please respond to that if you will plan on sitting with me at the, up near the front and then would like to go on stage? So I always get a little leery when I have to.
Can we not sit with you and still go on stage?
You don't have to sit.
Although my son might not want me on stage.
Okay, so let's not give invites for 7 people on stage. We can talk about that. But we would love to have you at graduation in the audience, like put you in the front row. But in all seriousness, if you have not been to one of our commencements, I think they're fantastic. Any parent who's been to one will hopefully tell you that same thing. And so we'd love to have you, whether you have a senior or not. We would love to have you. And I will give you a secret, the front row seats are not the best seats. They're not. About
No, can we,
the back.
yes, I'm going to be in the back in the middle.
All right.
I've already picked my seat. Can I
I'm
put my
watching
reserve?
Just, you're invited, and I won't get that out until it would be too late. So we'll send the email, and then please respond accordingly. We'll give you options.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to Facilities Track Committee. Nothing to report.
I drove over the day, it's looking good, it's looking good, it's making progress, so I'm happy to see that, I'm excited for,
Finance Committee, we discussed budget already. The Policy Committee.
There's nothing to report today, but we will be scheduling a meeting this month later.
Yeah, like I think I mentioned last meeting, we will have to do a meeting in May, and there's a couple of policies that we've got to get up and give to you for first reading in June.
Okay, thank you. E-Technology.
I know we're meeting later this week.
May 4th, I think. I think it's May 4th at 5. I know it's May 4th, I think it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I saw it on your report.
Thank you.
Nothing to report, Mr. Ruth.
Thank you. Finance report, curriculum, transportation facilities, as reported. Jay, I'll just go around and run the horn here, possible future agenda items. David?
Are you working on the Narcan policy? You know they followed up on that Narcan subcommittee.
Yes, that's one of the policies I need to bring to subcommittee and then bring to you folks in June. I'm not can't yet.
Recording subcommittee meetings, we had talked about doing that, but agreed to do that. That isn't happening. It needs to be an agenda item for discussion, or if it's just something we can do.
I'll add it to the subcommittee agenda.
Good, Chris.
The only thing that I wanted to start to see was an athletic report update perhaps from Mr. Sinclair in every packet, please, if possible. I'd like us to look at the, I don't know if it's a policy or procedure, but I'd like us to look to see about potentially having a school committee member on the hiring committee for varsity coaches. I want to thank the person that gave us some clear, constructive comments on the security, and I really would like to have us look into that and those suggestions that were made. I know security is something that I mentioned last time, and I just appreciate the person that did the public comment. It was very constructive, so thank you.
I'll just add, I would like to see an AD report too. And we should do more highlighting the success of our students.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be important for him to include in there, Brian, student athletes that are going on to play collegiately. I think that that's a pretty big deal. I think there's a lot of opportunity to monitor the numbers with our sports, make sure that they're not decreasing. Lots of opportunity that I'd like to see.
Okay, Kristen?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, that takes us to item 9, approval of warrants. Let's take these all together if you guys wouldn't mind.
I move to approve the warrants as listed under item 9.
Second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to enter executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056, discussion of labor contract negotiations with the Hermon support staff at
9:26.